on that front at this moment.
It is interesting that, that a loss for the president in the foreign policy sphere does not necessarily translate to a victory for the Romney campaign in the foreign policy realm because of the way they've handled all this stuff.
But the crucial part is what you said last, because of the way they've handled it. Generally speaking, a loss for the president does translate into a gain. Think of, again, Jimmy Carter. Ronald Reagan was seen as wildly inexperienced and kind of somewhat crazy on foreign policy, somewhat radical. Once Carter started having trouble, the Iran hostage crisis, the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, all Reagan had to show was that he was stable, that he was, that he wasn't going to blow up the world, and he benefited.
And I should also point out, Reagan did not politicize that event. He basically put out a statement, as I recall, saying that, basically stand behind we're all one.
He could see that bad news was hurting the president. He didn't need to do very much to pile on. I think that in this case, because Romney has been inept, it hasn't really translated much. I agree with Jessica. If something else were to happen, it might change that. But Obama, again, if he gets out ahead of it, because really these have not been events where people feel as though the United States is under attack, under siege. There's a feeling that something is spinning out of control in the Middle East, and we need to understand it.
Fareed, thank you, Jim Acosta, Jessica Yellen. Be sure to tune in Sunday night, 8 and 11. Fareed has a really fascinating special, Global Lessons, Putting America to Work, right here on CNN. With that, thanks, everyone. Well, the idea of terrorism continues to haunt Americans. It's the keystone of our continuing focus throughout the campaign on issues in 2012. We polled registered voters to identify their top foreign policy concerns. We asked, what keeps you up at night? Syria was number 5 concern, Afghanistan number 4, China 3. People told us their number 2 foreign policy concern is immigration, and the number 1 concern was terrorism. Well, tonight, the man who's long served as mayor of New York and much of his public persona ever since has been defined by a single horrific act of terror, Rudy Giuliani.
The thing that keeps me up at night, probably more than most, is the fear of a terrorist attack, maybe because I've lived through one, right, and had to be responsible for a city during our worst attack in our history. And it's very hard for me to tell people in America not to be worried about terrorism. I wish I could say that to them. I wish I could say, well, you shouldn't worry about it. Because the reality is that we are at risk of having a terrorist attack in the United States. So it's firsthand, not just the day of September 11. I watched people, before the buildings came down, I watched people dying from debris that fell from the building and hit them and crushed them. I was trapped in a building myself for 20 minutes, 25 minutes. So sure, I can relate to the fear. And it's a real fear. The thing that keeps me up at night the most is the whole idea of the use of nuclear material and the use of what I would call extraordinary biological weapons, chemical and biological weapons, where we don't have the capacity yet to deal quite with that form of attack. I remember exactly the date. It was the night of September 14th, 2001. President Bush had come to New York that day. 9 o'clock at night, I set up a secret meeting at Gracie Mansion with my medical task force. I brought in all the law enforcement people, and I brought in all of the experts that I could find on biological weapons. They started telling me about the danger of smallpox and the choices I'd have to make if there was a smallpox attack on New York City. And the choice basically came down to putting people on Randall's Island and letting them die, and then surrounding Randall's Island with troops so they couldn't get off Randall's Island and spread the smallpox to other people. God forbid we got to face these choices.